Now, this hat was completely finished, and then I frocked it back to to this. Good day everyone, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Mariette, also known as the Boervrou, and this is episode 18 of the Crafty Stitches Podcast. Today is the 21st of August 2022, and I'm coming to you from South Africa. So this morning we had -2 degrees Celsius here, which is not that cold. I mean, we have measured -14 degrees Celsius, but we are still not in spring, obviously. The wind has been blowing quite a lot this week. Anyway, so I have a lot to talk about, so I'm going to jump right into this episode. I just want to say thank you to all the returning viewers and to all of the new viewers. I hope that you will enjoy this content. Alright, so let's just jump straight into this episode. I am wearing my first finished object, which is my Ranunculus. So I'm going to try and stand up and show you what it looks like on, but I have limited space here, so let's see how this goes. So I made the Ranunculus in a cotton yarn, and as you can see, I don't have that much positive ease, but like baggy, but just enough to have a nice summer garment. Right, so if that didn't come out, I'll add footage. Right, so I just want to quickly go over what I used. I used some Moya 100% cotton, which is a hand-dyed South African yarn. It is a double knit, which has 135 meters on 50 grams. And I used the colorway Topaz. And I used 5mm Chaigu needles. So let me just check my notes because I made a lot of notes. So for this garment, I used 278 grams, which is just under 6 of these balls of yarn, which is 732 meters. No, 723 meters. And just for reference, my bust is 104 centimeters, and then I made it a little bit longer as well because it's really cropped in the pattern according to my standards, and I don't do cropped. So if I measure from the top of my shoulder to the hem of the garment, it measures 63 centimeters. So it's quite long, and yeah, I really enjoyed this project a lot. I have yarn for another one, but I haven't started it yet, but I'm very tempted. Anyway, so I usually do A-line shaping for my body, but for this garment it really isn't necessary. So the one thing that I will definitely change in the next one, when I do this again, is that the pattern has short rows at the back and less short rows in the front, and I will omit the short rows in the front in the future because I don't like it. That's the short of it. So because I am using a double knit yarn and only 5mm needles, my gauge was not the same as for this pattern, and I did make a lot of notes on my Ravelry project page So if you're interested, you can have a look at that, which gives the gauge that I got, my bust measurements, things that I've changed. That'll make sense if you have the pattern, because I didn't do the same cast on as in the pattern. I didn't use the same amount of stitches for the cast on as in the pattern. And then the other thing that I did is I also did not change my needle size for the hem and the cuffs as in the pattern. The first time I did my sleeves, I actually did go down a needle size and I didn't like it. So I just stick to the 5mm needles, and it worked out fine. And I'm really, really happy with this project. I actually wore it, I think 3 days already, not in a row, but 3 times, so 3 full days, and I really, really love it. So what I did before is I did cast off and decide that it was too short, and then I added another 3 or 4 centimeters to the hem, and now it's just right. I'm really, really loving this ranunculus. Okay, so did I say everything I wanted to say? It seems like I did. Yes. So yes, that is my first finished object. I have another finished object for you today, which is this dishcloth, which is now going to be a face cloth, not a dishcloth. So this is a face cloth that I knitted from my own pattern, which is called the Rustic Dishcloth. It's a very, very simple and easy pattern, and it is smaller than this one that you see here. This is basically double the size. So I used some 4-ply yarn, 100% cotton yarn. This is unfortunately discontinued yarn. It is 100% combed mercerized cotton, and it's got 125 meters on 50 grams. So and this colorway is called lipstick. So I used the 3.5mm needles that is suggested in the pattern, and I cast on 60 stitches for this one, and I did 20 repeats, pattern repeats in total for this one before I commenced with the garter border and cast off, although it's actually that side. But anyway, so this is a face cloth that I knitted for my husband. I usually knit his, I've actually made crochet first and he didn't like it, it was too thick. And then I did Tunisian crochet, and then I discovered the passion for knitting, and now I knit them. So his is looking a little bit sad, and I decided to try out this pattern of mine and have him tested as a face cloth for the replacement of his old one. That's the word I'm looking for. Right, so that is this one. It is finished. And as I said, I also made notes on my Ravelry project page, and I actually used 39 grams of yarn for this one, whereas the previous one that I made, which is a dishcloth, I only used 18 grams. So just over double the amount of yarn that I used for this one. Alright, so that is 2 finished objects. Let me just have a sip of my coffee. I am so prepared today. I actually brought coffee and ginger tea because I have the idea that I'm gonna need it because I have a lot to discuss. All right, so let's move on to WIPS. Right, so today I have 5 WIPS. Yes, 5 WIPS. Of which the first, of course, is my lace. That I will just quickly show because maybe you're a first-time viewer and you haven't seen it. And today I actually prepared it so that I don't get tangled up in my yarn as I usually do, especially with this project. Alright, so this is the lace that I am crocheting for my pantry shelves that I'm going to add to the shelves with thumbtacks. So in the crafting goals section I will discuss this, but I am doing a certain amount of repeats every week to complete one piece of this lace in a month, and one piece measures 4 meters. So I am exactly on track with this project. I'm just looking for my marker so that I can move it to track my progress here. Let me just do that. So my stitch marker that I'm using for tracking the progress is this stitch marker by Pincushion Crafts. And then I always, well nowadays, always add a stitch marker to my crochet stitch to keep the stitch secure, so that if I take it out it cannot unravel. And this is a stitch marker by Itsy Klein. And I've also started on this 4th piece, I started to mark my repeats on every 20, after every 20 stitch, after every 20 pattern repeats, I add one of these light bulb markers so that I can count it more easily, just as you would do with knitting socks. So that has helped me a lot to keep track of this project. So this project I am currently using this yarn, which is an old cone from my stash. It's 100% acrylic yarn, and the other 3 pieces of the lace is also in acrylic yarn, but it's just in another colorway, and it's from L. So we're gonna have 3 shelves with a sand color, and then 3 with this little bit of a lighter color. But I think it's going to look great. And I am using a 2.25mm hook for this project, and I do have a tutorial on the channel. If you are interested, I will link it down below for you on how I make this lace. Right, my second WIP is my August socks, which is a pair of socks for me. Now this is very interesting, so I'm going to share some interesting things with you today. Let me just grab the yarn tag. So this is a sock set that was gifted to me, and this is the yarn from Estereza Yarn Creations. It is the Donna base, which is a 20% kit mohair, 25% nylon and 55% superwash wool, and it is a 4-ply sock fingering weight yarn. It is beautiful, beautiful colors. So this pair of socks is knit toe up. So in the previous episode I was at this point. This is another stitch marker by Itsy Klein that I got as a gift from Lauren of the Little Yarn Craft. I have completed the rest of the sock, and I decided to try a new method of bind off. So yeah, I've worked on the way I'm holding my yarns and my needles and so forth. I used to do it in the same manner as in Nitty Natty's YouTube tutorial for toe-up socks, which is basically you knit 2 stitches and knit them through the back loop. So if it's knit 2, purl 2, you will knit the knits and purl the purls, but you will then knit the 2 stitches together through the back loop. And then I decided to try Jenny's surprisingly stretchy bind off, and it is too small for me. I cannot get it over my leg. It is not stretchy enough. So I actually brought one of my other socks, that is an older sock that I made from Knotty Habit yarns. Actually the first Knotty Habit yarn and the first ever indie dyed yarn that I bought. And this is cast off in that way as I described on Knitty Natty's channel. And I think you might be able to see that there is quite a difference in the stretchability of the bind off. I don't really know how to properly show it on camera, but that is the extent of both of the stretch factors of this cast off, two bind offs. So yes, needless to say, I am going to redo the bind off of the sock. So actually we discussed this the other night on the Crafty Stitches craft night. The suggestion was to maybe go up a needle size if I do the Jenny's surprisingly stretchy bind off, because if I do cuff down socks I cast on a 3.25 if I'm doing 9-inch, or over both of my needles if I'm doing magic loop, to get the socks to fit. Otherwise they also don't fit around my leg. So yes, I'm not completely sure if I'm going to first try that and if I'm just going back to the previous bind off method. We shall see how I feel when I actually rub back and redo the bind off. But anyway, long story short, the sock is finished and I'm just gonna unravel the bind off and redo that. And then I have started my second sock. Let me move this progress keeper over to this sock. There we go. All right, so I did start my second sock and I have just started to do the increases for my gusset. And yes, I am doing them on my 9-inch 2.25 millimeter circular needles. And yeah, I don't think there's anything else I can say about these socks. I hope you can see the beautiful colorway. It's really gorgeous. Let me just hide my face. There we go. Really gorgeous colorway. So anyway, that is the long and the short of my pair of socks. I'm gonna have to rip back and fix that bind off, but maybe out of interest's sake I will try casting off with 3.25 millimeter needles. I do have a pair of 9-inch 3.25 millimeter Jaigu needles, just to see if that gives the same amount of stretch or not. So I will report back on that for next time. So yes, that is my second WIP for this episode. Let me move the stack over. There we go. Alright, my third WIP for this episode is a project out of my WIP bin. I have decided this year to complete all the projects that was in my WIP bin that I decided to finish, and I did make a video about it. If you're interested, you can check that out. But this blocks was gifted to me, and it is knitted blocks, and I decided to make a doggy blanket with it by crocheting the blocks together. I have 20 blocks, and I've started crocheting them together, but now the only problem I have is the last 4 blocks is not the same size as the rest. But anyway, I will show you shortly. So this is what I have so far. So I didn't set out to do a very professional job of this. I just want to crochet them together, and I just crocheted them with some single crochet stitches together. I still have a few ends to weave in. But now the problem with these last 4 blocks that I have is that they are quite significantly smaller than the rest, as I'm sure you will be able to see. So I'm wondering, I think I will go and do a single crochet border around this, because I'm not planning to knit a border. No, I'm going to crochet. So I'm planning to do a single crochet border around it, and maybe do moss stitch or linen stitch around it, because I know it is nice and dense for blankets. And then maybe just crochet until these blocks are the same size as this one, and then crochet them on and add a border if I feel like it. So yes, I'm sure this is like double knit yarn, so I will have to go through the stash and decide on what I'm going to use. I'm sure it will be some scrappy yarn, because as I said, it's just a little doggy blanket. And then I will be able to finish this up. So this is growing, at least. I still now just have to fix these blocks, which will take a little bit more time than the previous ones that I could just sew on. All right. That is my 3rd WIP. My 4th WIP for today is my husband's hat. Now, this hat was completely finished, and then I frocked it back to to this. Me and this hat. All right. Anyway, so what happened is I definitely measured it incorrectly. So I think I maybe stretched it a little bit too much, and when it was finished, it was actually too small. So I'm going to do 1 or 2 sets more increases on this top part of the hat, and then try again. But this time I will have him fitted much earlier than finishing it and then asking him to fit it. So this is my own design that I'm coming up with, because of what he exactly wanted in a hat, and then I made one in a double knit yarn, the same brand as this actually, and it fits very well, but it is a bit too cold. So I'm doing it in a chunkier yarn so that I can get the amount of yarn that I need for this hat, and so that so that he can try it out and see if the thicker yarn is a bit better for him to wear. So the moment I have all of these specifications and knowing how much yarn I need, I will go and buy some 100% merino yarn and make him a hat. I am suspecting that this merino hat will only make an appearance next year before winter, or will be ready for wear next winter. But anyway, we shall not talk about that. He does have a double knit hat. So. Alright, so the yarn I am using is this Pear Gold Chunky from my stash. It is this doesn't have anything on the label. It's 100% acrylic yarn, I'm sure. And then it's got 150 meters on 100 grams. And I think this colorway is called Pepper. I'm not exactly sure, but I think it's called Pepper. Anyway, so one thing that I definitely saw on this hat when it was finished, because I had almost no yarn left. I had a piece like this. And because it is too small, I'm not going to have enough of this yarn for this hat. So I have looked through the stash and I found this blue variegated, I don't know, bluish yarn, which is the same Pure Gold chunky yarn. This colorway is called Jeans. So I might use this just to finish it off. I don't really mind what it looks like, so I'm not sure if he's ever going to really wear it like for an extended period of time, because it's not actually the end product. It's actually my sample, supposed to be. But if that does not make it to the hat, I do have this yarn, which is also a chunky yarn. But now this is not our Pure Gold yarn. And the only reason I'm not sure if I'm going to use this is because the yarn weight, I don't know if it's the yarn weight, but the meterage is not the same. Where the our Pure Gold has got 150 meters on 100 grams. This is our family knit chunky. And this yarn has got 160 meters on 100 grams. So it's not that big of a difference, but yeah. We shall see when I get to wherever I need to change to another yarn, what I feel like, because I mean this would be a better match because it's grey and darker grey. Oh, and this is called Ash. I think this is called Ash. It's actually left over from a hat that I made for a client quite a while ago. So we shall see when I get to the hat and the yarn is finished, what I feel like, but I think most probably I will use the grey, because I don't know if he will be very impressed with blue on his grey hat. Anyway, alright, so that is the hat. We are going to try again and keep trying until I get it right. And we will have a proper hat next winter. For sure. I'm sure of that. Okay. Alright. Let me have a sip of my ginger tea because my coffee is now finished. Alrighty. Oh, I didn't put a stitch marker in for a progress keeper. I actually took some out and I thought I'm going to use this grey marker, also by Pincushion Crafts, for the hat because it is also grey. So it's color coordinated. Alright. So now I can keep track of that. I don't remember if I said I'm knitting this on 5mm Chaigu needles. I think that is the suggested size. 4.5 to 5.5mm knitting needles. Anyway, alright, so that's the hat. Right, my fifth and final WIP for this episode is another new cast on, and it is the Tip Top Tank by Maker Designs. I'll put a picture up for you. Now this is another story. I don't know why I've frogged so much this past 2 weeks. It's very funny. So I actually made a swatch. I don't know why, because it didn't help. Usually my swatches are very nice and they usually help, but I don't know what I did, how I measured, or what I did, but this time it didn't work. Anyway, so I've been using the Moya 100% cotton double knit yarn, which is hand-dyed yarn, as I said before, and this colorway is Burnt Fudge. But now at the end of the day I decided I'm not only going to use the Burnt Fudge, but I'll show you the colors as we go. Anyway, so I made another gauge swatch. I did it in a tube form again, like a sock, because I threw it into the washing machine so that I can treat my swatch as I would treat my garment. So I started off and this time I made little holes for the needle sizes. So for each number I would make a hole, and for the half I made a ball bump. So the first one was 3.5 millimeters as suggested in the pattern. It is a free pattern, by the way. And then the second piece is a 4 millimeter, and the third piece is a 4.5 millimeter needle. So when I was knitting on this, I decided that I like the feel of the 4.5 millimeter better. I know that it will be a closed gauge with the 5 millimeter, as this is exactly the same yarns. But I decided I'm going to go for the 4.5 millimeter needles. And then I washed the swatch and I measured the gauge. And this was actually the nearest that I could get to gauge, because the gauge for the pattern is 21 stitches per 10 centimeters. And this gauge of mine, the swatch, is 20 stitches per 10 centimeters. Which means that for the amount of stitches for my bust size, I would have about 13 stitches too many, which will give me a garment that is overall about 6 centimeters bigger in circumference, which is not that much, or so I thought. So I then decided to do the split hem as per the pattern and the 1x1 rib. Not that I'm a fan of 1x1 rib. This looks quite nice, but I didn't feel like doing the knitting, twisting the knit stitches, and I decided I'm gonna just do a normal 1x1 rib. So I did do that. So I started the two hem pieces, I don't know what you call it, ribbing pieces, whatever, and I joined them together and I started knitting away. And something said to me, listen, maybe you should just try this on. And when I tried it on, it was a little bit big. So this is the piece that I just ripped off the needles. And as you can see, when I held it to my body, where I like it to be, this is what I had too much. This is what I need. So yes, I'm not sure if I'm making this for someone else or what happened, but obviously something is not right. So then I decided I'm just ripping it off the needles and I'm just going to start again, and I will frock this later. So I just bumped it back into the bag, took another piece of the yarn and started again. And then I decided, oh, I'm not doing the split hem and I'm not doing the 1x1 rib. So I just cast on the total amount of stitches that I need for my size, which I now measured off this. And I just joined in the round and I started knitting away. So I used the long tail cast on and I'm doing 2x2 rib. You can see that on my 4.5 millimeter needles, and I hope this is going to be better. I am planning on doing A-line shaping. I did fit this about 3 rows back, but I mean it's just been like 4 or 5 rows of ribbing, so I will finish the ribbing and I will add a little bit of knitting and fit it again and make sure that it works, and then I can decide on how many stitches I need to go down to my bust to have an A-line shaped garment. So very long story short, I redid the ribbing, the bottom ribbing of this project, and now I am trying again. because I really want to make more summer garments, and I would like to make different types of summer garments because I would like to more or less know how many balls of yarn I would need for a top for myself, so that if I see some yarn that I really love and which color scheme really works into my wardrobe, I know don't just buy 6 of them, buy 8, or don't buy 4, buy 6 or whatever, so that I always know that I can make a top for myself with this, and to see what the difference is for a sleeveless garment to a garment with sleeves. So, all right. So the second thing with this project is that I have 2 different dye lots of this color of yarn. So my plan was first to just stripe it like it's intentional, like bands, and then I decided no, I'm going to add more colors to it, so it's going to be a striped garment. And I'm going to stripe in these 3 colors with the brown. These colors are apple, bubblegum, this one is African mauve, and I've also got one that is quite similar, which is just called purple, and then this colorway is called burnt fudge. I've not decided yet if I'm going to do the same amount of rounds per color or how I'm going to stripe it, but it's going to be striped. That is all I know. So we shall see what I feel like when I get to that, the moment I get the fit right. So I decided to rather start from the beginning with the garment, because getting the right fit is very important to me. Because in the past I would always I would mostly make my garments too small, and I mean the use of that, you can't use it. So I've came up with this, that if I think that the garment is not fitting right, I would rather rip back in the start than re-knitting the whole thing, which I've done a lot of in the past, of remaking a complete garment because it didn't fit. So that is why I'm sticking to this, and I'm going to figure it out. Don't know how I measured the gauge, or how I measured, or how I did calculations, but I'm going to get it right. And when I do, I'll make some notes on Ravelry, so that you can have a look at it if you want to make it too. So that is my tip-top tank that I am definitely going to make. Anyway, I'm actually very excited about this project because it is a broader type of tank top, so that it hides your bra straps, and I think it's going to be a very nice garment for me to wear in the summertime. Right, so that is all of the WIPs for this episode. I am actually working on 3 more WIPs, but I'm not going to show them today, and yeah, we shall see when they feature in the podcast. Some of it is not ready to be shown yet. Alrighty, let's see what is next. Right, so that is all of my WIPs for this episode. I do have future plans, and I think I will talk about it and show it in the crafting goals section. So let's move into that section. Alright, so every month I share my crafting goals here on the podcast of what I would like to finish, what I would maybe start during the month, and so forth. And in every episode I give a little bit of an update on how I did on those goals. So my goals for August is to finish my lace and finish my August socks and the dark blanket. I did not make a specific plan for finishing the hat. I was I did say that I would like to finish it during August, but I didn't set a specific schedule for it as I did for the other 3 projects. So the lace, I'm doing 23 repeats every week, and in the past 2 weeks I did the 46 repeats. So my 3 weeks of lace is up to date for this month. And then the August socks that I'm making, I said I would like to do half a sock per week, which means that by now I should be finished with the first half of my second sock. It's a little bit of a tongue twister. But anyway, so I am not completely on track with that goal, but yes, I did do most of the foot, so I'm sure I will catch up during the next week to finish the sock and then redo the bind off of the first sock in the buffer few days later. Maybe I should first finish up this sock and do another bind off with another needle and see how that goes, because then I can just strip the other one back and repeat that, and then I would know if I like it or not. That is a plan, but I will let you know what I did with that. Alright, so and the dog blanket, the next one is the dog blanket, where I decided to do 5 blocks each week, and I did do that and 1 extra block because I only have the 4 blocks left to add to the blanket. So my plan is now to make the 4 blocks bigger and add them to the blanket and maybe do a border around it. So yes, that is the plan for the blanket for the rest of this month, which is not that many days left. But anyway, so I've already made my plans for my September goals. I don't have any plans for a new cast on. I think I do have enough. But I am again going to do the piece of lace. And then for September, I am also going to make a pair of socks, this time for my husband. And I'm going to use this opal yarn that was very kindly gifted to me. And I am very excited to work with this yarn. I wanted to get my hands on some opal yarns, and now I got it as a gift, and I am very happy about that. So I'm sure I will just quickly make I don't know if I will make a gauge swatch, because this yarn, let me see, it's 425 grams on 425 meters on 100 grams. So it's just 5 meters more than the Regia 4-ply. So I think what I will do is I will start his sock and then use that as a gauge swatch. If it fits, then I can just continue. So that is the plan for September socks. And then the project that I'm going to finish out of the WIP bin is a baby jacket. So I really do not have the ball band for this yarn, but I am 99.9% positive that this yarn is L Baby 3-ply. It's definitely 3-ply. And I would say I think this might be called Lemon, but I'm not sure. So this little jacket is the one that I'm going to finish for my WIP bin project, because it only needs a sleeve and some buttons. And I do have the buttons, but I just need to add the sleeve. So if I remember correctly, this project was in the WIP bin with the pattern. So I guess, and the needle, if I remember correctly. But if it doesn't have the needle, it was definitely made with a 2mm needle, 2mm hook. And as I said, I do have the pattern. I've put it into my project file with all of my project pages and so forth. So I will definitely have a look at the pattern and then just complete this little jacket. I don't have any plans for the jacket. I think that I might just pass it on to family members that might know somebody to gift it to. This is 100% acrylic yarn, and yes, I am planning to do this maybe in the first week of September, so that it is done as quickly as possible and I can do work on all of my other projects for the month without the extra stress of there is still a project that you need to finish type of thing. So yes, that is all of my plans for September. I don't know if they will maybe pop something up and I would maybe start a new project, but then I will share that with you. Right, so let's move on to the next section, which is the news section. Alright, so for news this episode, the video of last week was my weekend vlog of knitting and gardening, and it was a lot of fun. I haven't started to plant the vegetables yet because, as I mentioned, we had -2 degrees Celsius this morning, so it is still a little bit too cold for baby plants. But I am very soon starting my seedlings in seedling trays, and I usually bring them in the house. So they will be in the house until they come up, and then I will take them out every day to get sunlight and bring them back into the house until it's hot enough to plant them out. So that will happen, I think, this week. And I'm quite excited about this, getting my garden back up. I've already picked out all the seeds that I want to plant and so forth, so I am ready for that. Anyway, let's move back to other things. This month, the Scrappy Sunday chat video that my friend Leanie from Independence Crochet and I usually have every month will be a premiere this month. So on the 28th of August, Sunday the 28th of August, we will have a premiere of our Scrappy Sunday chat on both of our channels, and we will link it for you, and I will, as always, add a countdown timer to my Instagram stories for you to click on and to get a reminder of the premiere. So yes, you can please join us for a lovely chat and for some scrappy project inspiration. I am looking forward to that. The plan this month as well is that Leanie and I are going to the Stoepmark together. So the Stoepmark is a market in Pretoria, and I cannot really say much about it because I've never been. So it's going to be my first ever one, and I'm going to attend that with her, and I am sure it's going to be a lot of fun. So I'm very excited about that. So if you're going, please say hi if you see me. I love to chat. So we are going to that and just going to have a lovely chat with other crafters. And I don't know if there is anything else. What else is there for news? The other thing that I can just maybe mention is after the rest of the podcast, I will add in some footage of a ostrich taking a sand bath. We were driving to pick up some products for the shop, and we were waiting at the gate, and next to the car was this ostrich taking a sand bath, and I thought it was very funny, so I rolled down the window and I took some footage of that, and I will add that in after I am finished with the podcast. Alright, so as I usually do, I do have 2 podcast recommendations for this episode, And yeah, and 2 other channels that I'm also going to mention. So 4 channel suggestions for this episode. So the first one is 50 Fabulous Knits, which is Pia Trans. She is a Danish lady living in Italy, and I've always heard her name, like with knitting patterns and so forth, so I knew she was a designer. I always hear of the Breeze top. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but I didn't realize that she had a podcast, and a viewer of this podcast suggested her to me, and when I looked at it, I saw it was Pia Trans, so I was very surprised. But anyway, if you do not know of this podcast, please go over and have a look. Maybe you will like her content, and then you have another podcaster to watch. So yes, I was very surprised, and thank you so much for the suggestion. I really enjoyed the episode that I just watched, and I just saw this morning or yesterday that she's got a new episode, so feel free to go check that out. The second podcast that I would like to recommend is one that I have been watching from the start of that podcast. The channel is called A Yarn Tale. So this is Karen from Chicago. In episode 6, she showed the Dreamwalker cowl kerchief from Winter's Weather Knits, and I love it. It is so beautiful. She recently started dyeing up yarns, and I really enjoy seeing what she knitted and what she dyed up, because she also explains she was adding this color and that color to the dye bath, and then something happens that she didn't expect. So yeah, I love hearing about her dyeing adventures, and yeah, that's very fun to look at. So I don't know if you would be interested, but have a look. Just maybe it is some content that you would like. Alright, so then the other thing that I wanted to mention, other 2 channels, one of them is Happy Ever Yarn. So this is a fellow South African. Her name is Michelle Roux, and she just about a week ago uploaded a few videos to her YouTube channel, which she is calling her knitting journal, where she shows off some of her projects and some of the yarns that she acquired, and it is really something to have a look at. And we actually have the same yarn, one of the Knotty Habit yarns colorways that I bought. She's got the rest of the dye batch, I would say. But anyway, so you are welcome to hop over there and have a little look and maybe support her as well. So the last channel that I would like to mention is OM Granny Square. So this is also a fellow South African. Her name is Ursula, and she has live streams on YouTube. I think she has them on a Monday and a Friday, most Mondays and every Friday, where you can just go and have a chat with some crafters, ask some questions, have your drink and just have a chat with fellow crafters. And she also has a feature where you can join them on screen, so you can actually go up onto the panel and you can actually show off your garments if you like. So if you like to have a little chat and knit with fellow crafters, you can have a look at that. She usually schedules the live streams, so you can see when it's going to be live, and you can press the button to get a notification the moment they go live, and you can go have a look and have a chat with them. She also does have some tutorials on her channel, which is crochet and knitting tutorials. So maybe there is something there that you are interested in and you can maybe make some of the garments with one of the tutorials. So you're more than welcome to go and check that out. Alrighty. So I will end the episode here with my normal comment question. And my comment question for this episode is, what is your favorite stitch in the craft that you are doing, or in any of the crafts that you are doing? We were actually talking about this on a Zoom meeting, and I thought that is very interesting to ask. So for me especially, I love moss stitch in knitting. Moss stitch or seed stitch, and also double moss, like 2 knit 2 pull, 2 knit 2 pull, that type of thing. And in Tunisian crochet, I really love the honeycomb stitch. I cannot really say that I have a favorite stitch in crochet. I have no idea, but that is the two that I know that I like the best. So I would love to know what your favorite stitch is in the craft that you enjoy doing. Please stick around for the footage afterwards, and I will see you next time. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you would like to see any more of my content. And I will see you in the next one. Until next time, happy crafting. Bye.